Hi everybody, and welcome to this video where I'm going to be showing you how to make a simple triple bin store. This is a very easy job in my opinion if you have a reasonable amount of DIY knowledge. Basically, if you can measure timber, cut it to length and fix it to other pieces of timber, you shouldn't have any problems with this. And right now you can see that I'm measuring the bins. I'm just getting the width, the depth and the height of each bin. The blue bin is slightly bigger than the other two, so the width and the height is based off the blue bin, and the depth was slightly bigger on the green and brown, so that is what I based the depth of each bin store on. I'm also measuring the base here, which is some decking that I built a few years ago just to make sure I've got enough room, and coincidentally it was pretty much exactly the length that I needed it to be. So once I've got all my measurements, I'm going to move into the back garden where I have a chop saw set up. And obviously you can do this without a chop saw, you could do it with a hand saw. It's just going to take you considerably longer. The chop saw really is going to speed the process up. So to start with now, I'm just building the back frame. So you can see here I have the top and the bottom that I'm starting to mark out now together. And I'm just kneeling at the minute on the uprights of the frame. So this will be the either end and the two uprights that form the dividers for each bin store. Okay, so to start with, I mark the ends and then I measure from the inside of where I marked with a piece of timber to the inside edge of the next timber, which will form the bin store. And then I repeat this process at the other end to form the second outside bin store. And if my measurements are correct here, then the middle one should be exactly the right measurement, and as you can see I'm happy with that, so everything worked out exactly as I'd planned there. So the next job is to just lay everything out in place and get ready to start fixing the frame together. So for this part of the process I actually used a nail gun. Now the only reason for this is I'd basically just bought a new framing nail gun. I wanted to test it out, and obviously, with it being a framing nail gun, it is very good for this type of job. However, it's not necessary at all. You know, you don't have to go out and spend a lot of money on a framing nailer. Just use a standard cordless drill, and that'll be perfectly fine. In fact, later in the project, on the doors and the lids, I actually ran out of nails, and I ended up building the rest of the frames with screws anyway. So very simple. Let's just get two fixings in either end, just to hold it all together. And there you go, that's pretty simple. So the back frame is done. Once that's been built, you can start on the dividing frames, and these are extremely simple. It's essentially a top, a bottom and two sides, and all four of these are going to be exactly the same size, so you can just cut all the timber at once. And then once you have these cut out, you can just build the frame. And as you can see, very, very simple. It's basically just a rectangular frame. And again, two fixings either end. And then once we've got all of these dividing frames built, I can take them around the front and start to fasten everything together. So basically attach the back frame to these dividing frames. So you can see here I've got the back frame leaned up, and there's also one of the small dividing frames. And just here on the left hand side you can see I've got the other three leant up against the wall. So this part is very simple. You're just going to line them up, make sure the ends are nice and flush, and then it's just a case of screwing the back frame into the smaller dividing frames. So I'm just going to screw through from the back with one screw at the top. And then I'm going to follow that with a screw in the middle and then one at the bottom. And then just carry on in the same process for all four of them. So we'll speed this up. As you can see, very simple, not complicated at all, just screwing from the back. The reason I decided to screw this rather than nail is for two reasons. Firstly, it's going to give us a better fixing, and secondly the nails would have been too long. But there you can see it's worked out pretty nicely, very simple. Just check the bins fit. Obviously our blue bin is a little bit bigger, so we just double check that one just to make sure. And there you go, I'm happy with that. So whilst the camera was off, I added a piece of 2x1 along the top. And that's basically to just give us the width on the doors and also give us the front section that the lid will close onto. And you can also see that I've got a brace on the back, and the brace is there basically to square the entire frame up and get our ends nice and plumb. And that's very simple to do. All you do is measure from corner to corner each way, and just essentially you want corner to corner to be completely equal in distance. Once you have them even in distance, then you can fix the brace in place. And then once we've got all the back panels on, that will actually tie everything together anyway. So once these back fence panels, which is what I'm using for the cladding of the frame, once these are all on the back, that is actually going to tie it all together square, so you can just remove that brace once that part of the job's done. Now for this, I was using 2 screws at the top and bottom of each panel. I was using decking screws. So I will provide a cutting list below and all the screws and the different ironmongery that I used on the entire project. But I believe these were 50mm decking screws. Okay, and this actually fit near enough perfectly on the back, so I was really, really happy with that because it meant that I didn't have to rip anything down. And it also worked out almost exactly perfect on the sides as well. There was a small discrepancy at the back corner, which was barely noticeable, about 20mm or so, 25mm. In the end, I didn't even bother ripping a piece into that because it didn't seem worth it. But you can see I'm doing it on the side, and I've just taken the brace out now because everything's tied together. And this will get in a little bit heavy at this point as well, by the way, when I started moving this. So if you have somebody to help if you're struggling, that might be handy. But yeah, as you can see, I stood inside it and lifted it up to move it, and that was the best way to do it. Just checking each one of those openings there for plumb. They're all looking fairly nice. And then I'm going to just do the other side. Again, 2 screws, top and bottom. And oh, by the way, I was using an offcut of the fence board as a spacer. So the space there on each one is the thickness of a board, just to keep it nice and simple. There we go, just check the bins again. And then it's on to building the lids. And again, I just kept this really, really simple. The lids are basically exactly the same as the dividing frames. It's just a very, very simple rectangular frame. Top, bottom, 2 sides. All these lids were exactly the same size as well, so I cut them all at once. And once I had them cut to size, I started cutting some more fencing boards to clad them with, and obviously these are all the same length, so I just used the chop saw again and just cut them all at the same time for basically 3 lids. And this is the bit that's going to save a bit of time with the chop saw, you know, doing this amount of cuts. If you are doing this by hand, it is going to take you a little bit longer. So once I had these cut, I measured the lid. You can see there I was checking it for square. And I knew that I had 9 that fit on here, and there was going to be a gap. So as you can see here, basically I lined them out and just figured out what the gap would be, and I created a little packer with the chop saw, which I believe was 16mm, and that gives the spacing for them, just so we didn't have to do any cuts. And you can see here, this is it fitted. I fitted it with just some standard zinc electroplated hinges. These should be a little bit more weather resistant. I believe they were about £2 a pack, so you know, pretty cheap. And as you can see, 2 hinges on the back, and there we go, we've got a working lid. So once the lid was in place, I had the other 2 lids already built. I fit the middle one first, and then I fit the other 2 off the middle one. And really, this is, very simple. Like there's no real measuring or anything complicated here. It's just a case of putting the next lid on and just moving it into the correct positioning. So just move it about until I'm happy with the gap. Make sure that everything looks nice and even. Once I'm happy with it, just put the hinges on again. So yeah, very simple. And I just want to stress, this is exactly my intention with this project. I wanted it to be extremely simple all the way through. So once that was done, it's onto the doors. And the doors, again, are exactly the same as the lids. It's very simple, rectangular frames, top, bottom, two sides. And the paneling worked out about the same. I think I had an 18mm packer with 9 boards, and that worked out the gaps worked out exactly the same. So you can see here now, I'll build it up, fix it all together. You can see I've got a few of them done now. And then I just basically laid the panels out onto the frame here and just measured the bottom. This is how I got the gap for the spacer. And then I divided that by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So basically that measurement there divided by 8 give me the width of this packer. And if I remember correctly, it was 18mm. But what you'll see now is when I actually start spacing these out. So I'll get the first one and get that nice and flush and just fix that in place. And then I use the packer as I move down to get a nice even gap all the way down. And if the measurement and the little bit of maths that I did there was correct, then the last gap should be exactly the same as all the other gaps and be nice and flush with the bottom. So I can see now I'm actually pilot drilling these because I got a little split in one of the boards, or it started to split. So better safe than sorry. It'd take a little bit longer, but probably best to just pre-drill these. And here we go, we're coming on to the last one in a minute, so we'll just fix this one down. And as you can see here, just measure this up, fit it in place, test it with the packer, perfect. So once you've got your doors ready, it's time to hang the doors onto the frame. And I actually used some T-hinges for this, so these are the kind of hinges that you would see on a gate or maybe a shed door. I think they just look a little bit nicer as well than standard hinges. So the first thing to do here is just to mark the hinges out. And this one here, I just put it on the second panel down there. And I believe I measured that to, I think it was 200mm to the top of the hinge. Then pre-drill the holes that I marked there. And then you can just put the hinge on and just screw that in place. So the door itself at the minute is sat on two boards, basically. Two of the fence boards. So it's raised off the ground 22mm, which was the width of one of these boards, the thickness, should I say. I also allowed around 10mm. In fact, I think I allowed 12mm, so like 6mm aside for clearance on the doors. So I just got a little packer there, a little 6mm packer that I placed down the side of the hinge there just before I fixed it in place. And this is obviously going to give a nice even gap all the way around the door, or at least on either side. Okay, so once we've got the top hinge on, there's going to be a bottom hinge to go on, and for this one, if I remember rightly, I just basically lined this up with the bottom of the third panel. I don't even think I measured this one, I just marked it pretty much to run flush with the bottom of the third panel. Again, same process, just mark the holes, pre-drill them. And then just straight into the pre-drilled holes there with the screws for the hinge. And once I'm happy with that, I take my little packer out, just double check that on the other side just to make sure we've got the same gap. Place that in there just so we're nice and tight up. And then you can just fix it into the door. So I mean, it is really simple. This, you know, not complicated at all in my opinion. I honestly think that anybody could do this, especially watching this video. It just kind of gives you the step-by-step process. So remove them packets from underneath the board, and as you can see, lovely, just perfectly fitting door there. Nice little even gap all the way around. Cat seems to like it. And there you go. So after all the lids are on and all the doors are on, I added some bolts here. So that, you know, I didn't bother filming this with a step-by-step process because it's just extremely simple to add these. As you can see now, when I open the door, the bin slides out perfectly, perfect fit. And all your lids are working. Job done. I think you'll agree. Don't look bad at all. So yeah, I hope you found that useful. And you know, if you do have any questions, by all means, leave them in the comment section below if you're on YouTube. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have success building your own bin store.